TGIF. From the KUOW newsroom, this is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with a roundup of today's top stories. It's Friday, August 1st. In our top story today, 7 people at the ICE detention center in Tacoma are being treated for suspected tuberculosis. Washington State's health department is in charge of the investigation, but as Eilish O'Neill reports, information about the cases is scant.
There are only about 20 tuberculosis cases a month in the entire state of Washington. And this month, 7 of those cases are at the ICE facility in Tacoma. The detainees were tested for TB when they arrived at the facility, and suspected positive cases were put in medical isolation and are receiving treatment. A spokesperson for the state health department said in an email that there's no known connection between any of the cases, and the agency does not believe there's been any transmission within the facility. Because of that, the spokesperson said, they're not gathering information about how many total people have been tested for TB, and they cannot answer questions about how many detainees are in medical isolation. ICE has not responded to KUOW's inquiries about the tuberculosis cases. Eilish O'Neill, KUOW News.
Asylum seekers in Washington are raising the alarm on a state program meant to keep them housed. They're warning the governor's office that if not addressed, people could once again end up living in encampments. Gustavo Segrero has more.
The Washington Migrant and Asylum Seekers Services Program started back in 2024 to help immigrants seeking asylum in the U.S. Part of the program provides short-term housing while people figure out their immigration cases and get work authorization. Adriana Figueira is an organizer for the asylum seekers. She says the 3 months that people are being housed for isn't enough, and they want input.
Con el fin de garantizar que el programa incluya soluciones a largo plazo.
She says the program could be managed in a way where people could be housed for longer, address individual needs, and in a more cost-effective way. Advocates also met with officials from the governor's office this week, and they've also talked about the potential for the state to issue work permits for immigrants while they wait for the federal authorization. Gustavo Segrero, KUOW News.
In some school news, an education nonprofit says it's facing insolvency because the Washington Department of Commerce hasn't reimbursed it for millions of dollars. Ann Dornfeld has the story.
The Equity in Education Center helped lead the state's digital inclusion program for 2 years, distributing grants to 36 organizations. Director Sharon Navas says after the Department of Commerce was audited last fall, it started withholding payments and asked for more documentation.
And we came to some really good understandings. We affirmed that we would give them everything that they needed.
Navas says Commerce has kept changing the requirements and now owes her organization and others $3.6 million. A Department of Commerce spokesperson said the state can't comment on what's become a formal contract dispute. But in June, Publicola reported that Commerce Director Joe Wynn said his agency has only withheld payments that lack proper receipts. Ann Dornfeld, KUOW News.
It is day 1 on the job for the University of Washington's new president. Robert J. Jones came to the UW after serving as chancellor for the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Jones is UW's first black president, and he's pledged to stand firm when it comes to the university's diversity, equity, and inclusion values. Local food banks say they're bracing for a wave of new clients as federal funding for food stamps is cut, and new work eligibility rules could force thousands more people off benefits. State officials estimate around 170,000 residents could lose access to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. President Trump's tax and spending package that passed last month raised work requirements for SNAP recipients to 80 hours a month up to the age of 64. It's almost Election Day. A measure to renew Seattle's Democracy Voucher program for another 10 years is on the August 5th ballot. This first-of-its-kind program gives voters $100 in coupons to donate to candidates. KNKX Murrow News fellow Nate Sanford has more.
Last week, Seattle City Council candidate Jamie Fackler was talking to voters outside Numos in Capitol Hill. He was accompanied by a real live donkey and dressed as Shrek.
I got a little nibbled by the donkey.
He was there for Candidate Survivor, a semi-regular youth-focused event put on by The Stranger and Washington Bus. Candidates dress up in costumes. It's a chance to connect with young voters and ask for their democracy vouchers. Fackler is a big supporter of the voucher program.
It really means that we've got to get out there and talk to the voters.
One study found the average age of candidates decreased slightly with the voucher program. Georgetown University professor Brian McCabe worked on the study.
It levels the playing field to say you don't have to have 20 years of political experience and a long donor list in order to run for office.
30-year-old Rye Armstrong says their run for Seattle mayor would have been impossible without the democracy vouchers.
Someone like a young trans environmentalist, forget about it. It just wouldn't happen.
But less than 4% of voters under 40 used their vouchers in the last election. Nate Sanford, reporting.
Finally today, a new report shows Washington state has lost more construction jobs than any other state in the past 12 months. A Puget Sound Business Journal story cites new analysis from the Associated General Contractors of America. It shows Washington lost more than 11,000 construction jobs, a third of them in the Puget Sound region. One economist told the Journal developers have pulled back in part because they're not getting the bank loans for high-rise buildings. Next week on Seattle Now, the Special Commitment Center on McNeil Island houses sex offenders after they get released from prison. It's under scrutiny for how residents say they're treated.
143 residents alleged that they were receiving inadequate medical care or had received inadequate medical care.
We'll hear more about a new Seattle Times investigation Monday morning. That's all for today from the KUOW newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Andy Hurst. I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. Have a great weekend.